Okay, so oxalates, now sulfur. These are the vegetables that when I first came to you, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm so bloated and I'm eating keto and low carb. And I was eating these amazing cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli vegetables with seasoning and garlic and onions oh my gosh, it was so good. But Teri, I took them out of my diet, and literally within 2 days, 5 pounds of water weight just went away in my stomach. I could see it again.
Yep. No, sulfur's a big deal. Again, glyphosate, here we go again, that little active ingredient in Roundup that's liberally sprayed on our crops, 300 million pounds a year, interrupts our body's ability to convert sulfur, our healthy sulfur-rich foods, to sulfate, which is the end product. And if you look at my first book, which was written over 15 years ago, I was a very pro-sulfur human being because sulforaphane is important in liver detoxification. It's important in anti-cancer. It's got a lot of phytonutrients. And then it hit a wall. Glyphosate created a wall to getting to the happy part of sulfur. And then instead what happened is we started having these intermediary metabolites. And Sara, through my recent research, sulfur cross-hatches with histamine. So now if you're having a sulfur response, you're also having a histamine response. If you're having a histamine response, you're having a sulfur response. They intersect, and they intersect at that CYP for a family of genes in phase 1 liver detoxification. So you're backing up your liver detox pathways, right? So the liver is like, help me. And taking sulfur, which used to be great, including glutathione as an antioxidant, is no longer in many cases good. I just saw someone right before we went on air. She's had cancer. We've gotten her cancer markers. She's been clean for 4 years. Yet one of her physicians is really proposing glutathione IVs. And I actually read it to her in the clinical literature as an antioxidant. Glutathione can actually increase cancer cells, folks. Okay, so if you have cancer, beware of that. Glutathione is high sulfur. I've had a client that had just deforming psoriasis. This beautiful woman, you couldn't even see her face. She was taking glutathione IVs to manage her strep, and it was literally deforming her from a psoriatic perspective. We took away the glutathione, we took away the sulfur, she got herself back. So it's a big deal. Sulfur and histamine, big intersection. So if you have sulfur sensitivity, you're more likely going to have to avoid both sulfur and high histamine foods. If you have high histamine sensitivity, you're going to have to avoid both histamine and sulfur foods right now, especially in the world of this pandemic.
Okay, 2 questions. So if I were to have my amazing vegetables that I had 4 years ago, I probably would not just be bloated, but I'd probably be itching on the inside as well. So my symptoms would have been double whammy. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yes, my daughter just recently had COVID. She's never had a panic attack. She's never had a histamine response, and her heart rate went to 200 and she passed out. So that's a big deal. Her sulfur and her histamine. She'd had octopus and she'd had some sulfur vegetables. Now that seems to be like a good food, but octopus is high histamine and the sulfuric compounds, because she had like a cabbage slaw, right, trying to be healthful, and it really wrecked her. And we're seeing that a lot, including myself. I was having mahi tacos in September when I was in San Diego recently. And the first day was great. And I really wanted that second day of this taco. It was so fresh that it was being pulled right out of the ocean. And I had his response the second day. So charcoal was my go-to. And I always carry it now. I always suggest for everyone, unless you have a charcoal allergy, carry charcoal in your purse. It will save you. It will save you. And now I make my daughter, if she chooses to have charcoal with her at all times.
Now with the new formula that is Teri approved, yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. It doesn't have the psyllium anymore, but it has the charcoal, the zeolite, and I am now doing what you did. So for Super Bowl last night, I had some grain-fed beef. They're beef ribs, and they're my favorite meal going down. But I took a scoop of that before the meal, and I took a scoop of it before going to bed. So, and I feel fine today. But back to the sulfur. So sulfur is so good for us. Glutathione is so good for us. These are anti-cancerous foods. If we're not taking them in, how do we get the sulfur the body needs?
That's really good question. So wild game, because meat contains sulfur as well, but it has obviating amino acids because it's a full amino acid profile to manage that burden. And you can dance with sulfur as long as you're taking some other obviating, a DAO enzyme if you have a DAO deficiency, charcoal. If you have that, quercetin is amazing as a mast cell stabilizer and an antioxidant. Many people are now, we're recommending H2, H1, H2 blockers, antihistamines here and there. But really, really great question. But meat has the sulfur components.
Okay.
Egg, if you can manage it, is also high in sulfur. Garlic, if you can manage it, is also high in sulfur. So is onion. So we call this the hierarchy of needs. So garlic, if you cook it down or you roast it, it can be gentler on the system and still impart sulfur and impart antibacterial qualities as well. Similarly with onion. With me, onion though gives me a headache. I can do garlic, onion. It's for me, it's a no-go right now. It's very rare.
And that's a good point where some of these sulfur foods or some of these oxalate foods you might be able to handle, but you might not be able to handle other ones. And everyone's individual. And that's what I love about you is that you talk about your current state of health.
Yes.
And there's right. I probably am fine right now having fish. I probably would be okay. I take a histamine enzyme and I take your wild lights, I take your immune mover, and we'll talk about those in the stress mover as well. And when I'm having tomato sauce with some low carb pasta to go with my bison meatballs that are amazing, and everyone in my family loves them, so it's a winner. But I will take those supplements and I'm fine and I feel great. Sometimes I'm okay with onions, but definitely not garlic. For me, I can't do garlic. It will rock me and it's not worth it. And the breath, it's not worth it either. So
Well, exactly. And that's why we're all different. And so when you start getting really clear feedback from the body, then you can make an informed decision. But when there's so much noise, you don't know what's what. And so that's why it's really eating to your genetic blueprint and your current state of health will give you that direct, clear guidance.
and
And
I
then you
love
know it's yours.
so I mention to people, unless they're able to go to you and get a full print up of what they're allowed to eat, I tell them, just for a couple weeks, eliminate the oxalates, the sulfur, the amyloids, and then introduce your favorite food back in for 3 days and just one and see if you react. Your body's going to tell you. But when you are a garbage can, you don't know what you're responding to. Your body's totally numb and inflamed and you don't know any different.